Hello, my name is Kate Hudson Hall, and thank you for listening to Bulimia Sucks. This is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting stories, experiences that people have had with an eating disorder, plus also talking to people and professionals that work with people with eating disorders. Now, before we begin, I wanted to tell you about my book, my audiobook. So Bulimia Sucks, the audiobook, is now live on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And if you'd be interested in like a free copy of this, then please email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com. And then I can send you the code so you can download it for free. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that our Patreon platform is now live. So for those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it's a way for our listeners to support us financially and allow us to continue creating content and helping people with eating disorders. So if you would like to do that and support us, or you wanted to find out more information, if you go to patreon.com/Bulimia Sucks, and then all the information is in there. Now, I'm very excited. Our guest today is Summer Innanen, and she is a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence. And she helps people all over the world to stop living behind those numbers on the scales through her private and group coaching, which is at summerinnanen.com. And she is also the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. So we want to hear about that book. And the creator of You on Fire, which is an online group coaching program dedicated to helping people to get free from body shame, which I'm sure so many of us can relate to. She's also the host of Eat the Rules. I love that name. That's great. A podcast dedicated to anti-dieting body image, intersectional feminism, and empowering people to live life on their own terms. So welcome, Summer. Summer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, this is great. So I was thinking, so maybe we could begin with when you were younger and how you struggled with body shame and confidence, and then your obsession with dieting to lose weight, and then what happened when you were 32, and then I love this, when you smashed your scales. I love that because that's what everybody should do.
I agree. It's very liberating to do that. So I mean, my story is probably very similar to a lot of people listening in that I don't really remember a time where I felt comfortable in my body. And, there were a lot of influences that drove me to feel that way. I was bullied quite a bit for my body when I was growing up, and my mom was a chronic dieter, and
Right.
just given the culture that we live in, I was always just sort of comparing myself to others and feeling like there was something wrong with my body, and that if I could just fix my body, if I could just make my body smaller, then I would, it would just resolve everything for me. I would feel
Absolutely. And I
loved.
think so many people think like that, don't they? That if I can just lose that, that half a pound or whatever it is, my life will be perfect.
Exactly.
But that's not the case.
Yes, exactly. And so that led me to become a chronic dieter. That started out pretty early on. I think I went on my first diet when I was like 13 or 14, and that progressively intensified as I got older, and became much more of like an exercise addiction for me. That was kind of my primary coping mechanism, paired with a lot of dieting, which sort of looked like restricting food or cutting out food groups, and then binging or like falling off the wagon, so to speak, and then repeating that cycle endlessly over and over. And it was never enough. Even when I was at my thinnest, I still didn't feel good enough.
Right.
And so ultimately it started to take a toll on my health. I didn't have a regular menstrual cycle, and I just felt like I had kind of, lost my spark, and my body was not responding to dieting anymore. So I thought there was something wrong with me. In my disordered frame of mind, I thought there was something wrong with me, even though in hindsight, I know now that my body was just doing what it's supposed to do,
Yeah.
in that it was protecting me from those famine responses, but those famine signals. In any event, I ultimately found a doctor who was a naturopathic doctor who said to me, like, Summer, your hormone levels are the same as a postmenopausal woman. And I was 32 at the time when that happened. And she looked at what I was doing in terms of the intensity and the frequency of the exercise, as well as the foods that I was and wasn't eating, more importantly.
Right.
And she told me that this was what was creating that dysfunction in my body. It was just, I was overloaded on stress as a result of the food restriction and the over exercising. And so, she said, you got to stop all of that in order
Yeah.
to heal this. And that was really my wake up call moment when I realized I had a problem, because I honestly thought that everything I was doing was healthy. For a lot of the years leading up to that, I was very much focused on health, and I had even gone into a career as a nutritionist because I was so focused on health. And I truly believed that everything I was doing was for health reasons, like was healthy, even though it was all driven from body dissatisfaction. And
Mm.
so it was really shocking to me when she told me this. And I knew there was a problem when I was more upset about the fact that I was told I couldn't do intense workouts anymore. I was more upset about that than the fact that my hormone levels were the same as a postmenopausal
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I had a problem.
Yeah.
And so that led me on a path of healing, where I worked with some professionals. I read a lot of books, and I really realized that the root of all of this was body dissatisfaction and the way that I felt about my body and my body image. And that was really sourced from my self-worth being reliant on how I looked, and my appearance being the thing that dictated how I valued myself and other people's opinions and all these external measures. And once I uncovered that, I realized, I was working as a nutritionist at the time. Like, I realized it was the same story over and over with my clients. I would have these women come into my office, and they hated their bodies. They wanted to lose weight. They were on this diet binge cycle for years. And, I was like, it's the body dissatisfaction. All of this is really rooted in the way we feel about our bodies and the power that we've given to our appearance and the way that we look, which is something that we've learned. It's not our fault. And so I
But
shifted
I'm sure
gears.
that so many people can relate to this.
Yes,
Summer.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And so I shifted gears, took a couple different life coaching courses, and really started to then work with people on body image and self-worth and confidence, and helping them truly cultivate this belief that they're good enough regardless of how they look. Because once we can get to a place like that, then all the issues with food kind of fall away. That we can start to really free up that mental space in our mind, and that time and that energy, and really be present in our lives and enjoy them and do more purposeful things. Because I call myself a career dieter. It was literally a career. Like, the number of hours that I spent thinking about food and fixating on my body, it was like a second career.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to reclaim that time, it's so freeing. And so I've been doing that now for, 8 years exclusively. And it's just been amazing to help other people with that too.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So Summer, so tell us then, how do you so if somebody came into your office, what would be the first, so what are the stages, the steps that you take them through?
Yeah, that's a tricky question to
Because
answer, because
everybody's
I do
different.
find it so individual. But I think the first thing is really, starting to get rid of all of the things that feed that negative voice in your head. So, the voice of your inner critic, or I don't know how you refer to it with your clients, but that negative voice in our head,
that negative chitter
is
chatter. Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's being fed by so many different things.
Yeah.
Some of that's outside of our control because it's just within our environment and our culture, but a lot of it is within our control. So that's why I have clients get rid of the scale. That's why I have them get rid of a lot of the tracking things that they might use, whether that's like a measuring tape or a Fitbit or an old pair of jeans that they try to make sure they can still fit into. I have them get rid of the clothes in their closet that don't fit anymore, because every time you open the closet and you see clothes that don't fit anymore and they make you feel bad, you're essentially reinforcing that you're not good enough. And so it's just starting to be,
and it's also having that part of your mind, your subconscious mind, focus on the one thing that you don't want to be focusing on. Is like,
exactly,
trying to get into those clothes.
Exactly. So, get rid of those things. Disrupting the mirror checking habit, which I think is sometimes a very sneaky substitute for the scale. I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, I don't have a scale anymore. And I ask them, I'm like, well, do you mirror check? And they're like, oh yeah, I do.
It's as you surrounded by mirrors, and
it's really kind of the same thing in a way. It's all these kind of external things that drive that make us feel like, that we should be relying on these external things to tell us like how we should eat, how we should feel about ourselves, and all this stuff. So getting rid of all that stuff, and changing your social media feed, I think, is extremely powerful, because the images that we're taking in completely form the ideals that we have in our minds. And if we can, shatter that ideal and really diversify our feed and start seeing actual bodies that represent the diversity in our culture, then it starts to reflect the way that we feel. That starts to change the way that we feel about ourselves. And so those are kind of like the upfront things that I do with people.
The beginning.
And yeah, that's honestly like the first session a lot of the time. Or if people have been following me for a while, then they've sometimes already made those changes because I talk about them ad nauseum. But and then we start to kind of get to some of the more deeper stuff, understanding where our beliefs about our body have come from, because our body represents something different to everyone. Like my issues with my body are different than, your issues or somebody else's issues. Like the way that I interpreted my body and what I believed about my body and what I believed it said about me is different than somebody else. And I think that's really, it's about kind of excavating that and getting to the root of that, to be able to then start to create a new narrative and change that belief system that we have about ourselves and our body. And a lot of the work I do there is about introducing compassionate self-talk and really learning how to talk to ourselves and how to change those thought patterns and those beliefs that we have, in order to lay a new foundation where we are kinder, more respectful, and more compassionate with ourselves, and not so hard on ourselves and beating ourselves up all the time. Yeah. Another big piece of what I do is really helping people discover who they are outside of their body. So helping them really identify their values, their purpose, what truly gives them a sense of fulfillment in this life, what's more important to them than how they look. Because I think we get lost in that, we let our appearance define all those things, and it becomes the focal point of who we are. It becomes our identity in a lot of ways. Like my identity was a dieter. It was like, I'm a chronic exerciser. Like that's my identity. And I really didn't know who I was when I let that go. And so, getting to know that, who you are beyond the scale, who you are, what you want out of this precious life.
And what you enjoy in life, because that's all, even just something simple like that, it all just gets lost completely.
Right. And it's, like body shame and dieting is often a coping mechanism. And so, if we're unaware of like what those kind of triggers are and what we're really using it for to cope with, then we don't know how to kind of, process and move through those feelings in order to focus on like the things that really matter in this life. And so it's about getting to all of that. It's a lot of deep work, as you can probably hear. In order to have people just know that who they are as valuable and worthy, and learn like a lot of just different tools and techniques to be able to work through those moments where they start to feel less than.
And what sort of tools and techniques would you be teaching your clients at that particular point?
I think so. I really rely a lot on like the inner critic framework. So being able to recognize the negative voice that we have, being able to recognize emotions that are underneath the thoughts, and teaching clients how to process and feel emotions versus just trying to either think their way through them or avoid them. And learning how to compassionately tend to yourself, whether that's through the way that you speak to yourself or the way that you treat yourself in terms of the self-care that you have in your life or the choices that you make to really honor your needs and your wants. And I'm trying to think of a bunch of the other tools that I use. I mean, I feel like it's often so individual. I do a lot of work with, like trying to use mirrors to actually normalize the way your body looks, or trying to use photos to normalize the way your body looks, so that we're not completely just avoiding it. It's one thing to do mirror checking, but it's another thing to like never look in the mirror and avoid it and then see your image and be completely jarred by it. So it's a lot of stuff like that. And I think so much of it is about just learning how to feel our emotions. Because as I said, oftentimes, body shame is a coping mechanism. It's a way for us to kind of give us a sense of control or hope or power in situations where maybe we don't have that, or where the emotions are too intense, things like loneliness or anxiety, or feeling like we don't have a lot of control. The pandemic being a really good example of that. I found that a lot of my clients, like their body shame had really been heightened. The urges to diet were increased because there was all this, kind of chaos and uncertainty happening. And it's a go-to coping mechanism to, kind of fixate on your body and think, okay, well, if I change my body or if I focus on my body, then, everything will just be fine, when that's not the case. Like that's just kind of, trying to avoid what you truly need to feel and learn how to manage.
Yeah. And so your book, Body Image Remix. So is that, what is that book about? Does that incorporate, what you've been teaching? Is it a program, or is it?
Yeah. So
I haven't had a chance to have a look at it yet.
That's okay. That's okay. I wrote it 7 years ago. So I would say that my coaching's evolved quite a bit since I wrote it. And I always tell people a bit of a grit with it.
Which is good, because then you're learning as you go along all the time.
Right. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I would say that I've kind of evolved quite a bit, but I still think in many ways it holds up. It's a bit of like kind of a memoir part self-help book in terms of speaking to some of those initial changes to make, and really just teaching people to look at kind of the standards that we're holding ourselves to, and where we learned those things, and how to really reject those things to be our just, our imperfect human selves. And I share a lot of stories about just, from when I was growing up, or just different kind of moments that happened to me that really connect to each of the different sort of lessons from that chapter. And it's a short read because I like to keep things rather concise and condensed. And there's journal prompts at the end of every chapter that correlate to each of the topics that I go through in that book.
Wow. Are you going to write another book?
It's not on my agenda at this time.
Not at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I really identify more as a coach than a writer. I think that, that's where my talent and skill lies versus writing. And I love hosting my podcast because I think that that's a better way for me to communicate my message versus writing. But it's just kind of like knowing your strengths. For me.
And how long have you been hosting the podcast? So Eat the Rules. I love that.
Yeah. So it used to be called Fearless Rebel Radio. And I think it's been 7 years. It came out before the book, I believe, a few months before the book. And so I mean, at the time I was one of the only podcasts talking about body image. There's so many now, but, and so I rebranded it last year to change the name to Eat the Rules, because I just thought that it was a little bit more, representative of sort of like this like rebellious, like, you know, kind of screw the rules, like do things your own way.
Yeah.
It's also kind of a riff on like on the Aerosmith Eat the Rich song, but that's because I like rock music. But anyways, but I just find that that's like a better place for me to share my message with people. It tends to resonate a little better.
I bet you've had many, many downloads by now after
I
7 years.
have, yes,
How
I
many have
have.
you had?
Well, I think in total there's been over 1.5 million
Oh
downloads
my
of the
God.
show. And I've
I
got
love
about
it. That's just
200
incredible.
episodes. Yeah.
How many?
About 200 episodes.
Oh
So, you know,
my
some of
God.
them have quite a few downloads. And then yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of the, how long have you had this podcast?
I've had it for about, I think about 7 months. And do you know what?
Okay.
Today is the day when I got the certificate saying I've had 10,000, no, hang on. Yeah, 10,000 downloads.
Brilliant.
I've
That's
achieved
awesome.
10,000. You've got how many? 1.5 million.
Yes. I mean, they grow over the years.
I think
right?
I've got a long way to go.
You got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. I'm proud of my 10,000.
Yes,
Thank
be
you
proud
to all
of
my
that.
listeners.
Be proud of that. You know what's so
Yes.
funny is like when I think about like I try not to think about my numbers because I tend to be very achievement oriented, which is not a healthy habit. And I think that for me at least, it's more of a damaging habit that I have. And because I always look at those things and I always think it's never enough, you know. So be proud of what you have, and I'm going to be proud of what I have. 100%. Exactly. Yeah. Which definitely goes hand in hand with body image.
Yes, absolutely. And now your online group coaching program, so You on Fire. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a online group program that I love doing. It's my heart and soul. It's my favorite thing, and it gives people a step-by-step way of really learning how to detach how they feel about themselves from their appearance, and learn how to get free from body shame so they can really just live life on their terms and spend time doing the things that they want to do. And it incorporates modules and worksheets and things like that, as well as group coaching calls,
Fabulous.
which I think are probably the best part of the course is the incredible community that we have and the support that you receive through me and the others in the community through the coaching calls. But it's just one of those things that like I see the transformation that happens with people in a few short months, and it's just incredible. Like, it's incredible what can happen when you really invest some time and energy into, really rooting through your beliefs and making changes and being really intentional and practicing acceptance and being really compassionate with yourself and having lots of tools and techniques to be able to do that. It's quite incredible what can happen in those few months when we're working together in that group program. So it's something that I'm really, really proud of and that I love.
That's amazing. So it's a group program. So how often do you meet and how does it specifically work? So they will have a one-to-one with you, but then there are group meetings, are there?
Well, the group meeting, they get individual coaching through me in a group setting. So when people come on to the group call, they kind of pop their hand up in the system or, type something into the chat box, and they chat with me for 10 to 15 minutes individually while everyone else listens, and then I go to the next person and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like laser focused coaching in a group setting. What's so great about that, I think, is that while other people are listening to somebody being coached, they're taking away different perspectives and insights, or they're thinking of things that they hadn't thought about, or they're kind of following along if I'm doing some sort of visualization or some sort of more like somatic technique with the person. And so the dynamic of the group, it's something that I focus more so than private coaching now, because I just find it so powerful. And they get the individual support, but they also have this like incredible supportive community of people then typing into the chat box saying like, I know exactly how you're feeling, or
Yeah, I'm
this is,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
you're amazing, or, it's just really, really supportive and loving. And I think that when you're doing this kind of work that's so countercultural, when, you still have family members that are invested in diet culture and all of that stuff, like, it's so nice to have a community that shares the same beliefs as you, that's working on the same thing as you,
Yeah.
because it can feel kind of isolating and alone, as I'm sure you know with your clients. Like,
Yeah.
it can feel like not a lot of people understand, or they don't, why can't you just stop doing that, or like, or you should be dieting, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's so enmeshed in the culture, and it's so normalized. And so to have a community where you're with people exactly like you, it makes such a huge difference
Yeah.
in recovering.
Yeah. And then that's excellent, isn't it? Because then the people that are listening can actually learn from what you're, from the coaching, that 15-minute coaching with that other person, because for a lot of the people, they will be able to relate to, part or all of whatever you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's why I sort of always encourage people to do the group program instead of working with me individually, because I do actually find it just so impactful.
Yeah. And so do they, so do you meet once a week, or how does it
It's
work?
Yeah, it's bi-weekly. So they get access to the calls for 6 months. And so they get about 12 calls. And I think that I like that because it gives them time to kind of digest things in between the calls, and also work on some of the module work that's in the program. And then there's ongoing support in our Facebook group too, in between those sessions. So if they have questions, or they need some additional coaching in between the sessions, in between the coaching calls, then we have a wonderful Facebook community where, again, like, you're getting all this support from people who have, maybe further along in their journey, or kind of in the same spot as you, and can offer really great, just supportive comments and advice.
Yeah, that's incredible. So do
Mhm.
you have people from all around the world
I
joining?
do. Yes, I do. Incredibly. I have people from all over North America, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. I've had people from Asia. I've had someone from South America. So it has been worldwide. And it's just so cool when I have someone from a different country be in the group. And yeah, I'm always just like, oh, it's such an honor to have someone from another
Yeah,
country
yeah, yeah,
join. And
absolutely.
it's just global, it's one of those things that is, I guess the message reaches everyone around the world, regardless of where they live.
Yeah. So how do people find out about it?
So everything is on my website at summerinnanen.com, or you can go to thebodyimagecoach.com. That will redirect you to my website, because a lot of people
Right.
can't spell my name. So you just go to thebodyimagecoach.com, and you'll find everything there. There's a link to the course. It's called You on Fire. And then I also have a free 10-day body confidence makeover, which
So
gives people,
what's incorporated in that?
it's a free download with 10 steps that you can take to start to feel better in your body and heal your relationship with your body. And so that's a free download on my website. It kind of gives people an introduction to the framework that I use, and some of the concepts that I use, and some of the steps that they can take. And then they can kind of get an idea of what I'm all about and how I work with people.
Wow, this is fantastic. So we'll put all the links below, and so people can easily find you in your Facebook and your Twitter and the Instagram as well, so people can find you. So what is the next step in your life?
The next step in my life is to I keep doing what my child's turning 3 at the end of the month. And sometimes I just feel like I'm hanging on, to be totally honest with you. No. So, like, I'm sort of split between like career and motherhood. And I don't have a ton of time for a lot of other things at this moment.
Yeah.
So my next step is to just like continue to balance those things with grace and compassion for myself, and to
With
really
grace, we like that.
yeah. I'm doing a lot more mentorship for other coaches, because I have a lot of coaches who come to me who work sort of in this same kind of like, intuitive eating or anti-diet space, but they don't feel super comfortable helping clients with body image. So I'm one of the things I am like doing more of a kind of a focus towards is really doing mentorship for coaches to help them learn like the tools and the techniques that I use to be able to use those with their clients, because I think that it's such a fundamental piece of the puzzle, and the more coaches that can feel really confident helping clients with body image, the greater kind of transformations that their clients can have. So I suppose that's one area where I'm really focusing on. And then I'm going to launch a new season of the podcast towards the end of the month, and I'm excited to get that going again. And
so on to that next 1.5 million.
Let's see. Well, I don't know. That's the hope. That's the goal that I.
Oh, here we go. Here she goes.
That's the goal.
I love it.
The more people it reaches, the better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Interesting how many people that you have helped over the years. It's fantastic.
Yes, I don't give myself enough credit, if I'm totally honest. I'm still pretty hard on myself in that area.
Oh, here we go now. Now, maybe this is something that you can work on.
It is. I am constantly working on it. I've come a long way. I don't cry so much anymore about it. I am able to like calm myself down and move forward.
That is fantastic. So you have come a long way.
Yes, but I'm a continual work in progress, as I think we all are.
As we all are. We're always learning.
Yes, 100%. Especially being a parent. It's like,
oh gosh,
that will always kind of be a mirror towards your own
absolutely. Like, I don't think that'll ever
baggage
stop.
and insecurities. Yeah.
Yes. When they're younger and they go, you keep reminding yourself this is just a phase when they're like 2 or something. And then when they're 28, oh, this is just a phase, but it doesn't quite wash so well.
Yes, I know. I'm probably going to, pine for the issues that we have now when he's older, and the issues become more complicated. Like, the issues we have now are quite simple. Like, he wants a toy and he can't have it, or, it's like, and it's just tantrums and things like that. So I know it'll become a lot more complicated when he's older, and there's like real life stuff going on that we have to work through together.
Yes, it's working through it together.
Yes.
Keeping that calm as you go along, as you move forward in life together.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Summer, for joining us. This has been such fun, and hearing about your journey and how fantastically you're doing with all your clients, your coaching and your podcasting.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Everybody's got to, we've got to start downloading it. We've got to get to that 1.5 million.
And then you'll just raise the bar higher. So, just don't look at the numbers. It's just data. It doesn't say anything about you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been
Thank
great
you so
to
much
have
for
you
having
on,
me here.
Summer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. So thank you for everybody for listening to Bulimia Sucks. And join us on the next episode. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes so you'll never miss an episode. And if you haven't already heard about it, check out my book, Bulimia Sucks, on Amazon to learn many different techniques to help you to begin to break through your painful bulimic behaviors. And I'd love to hear what you think. So please leave me a review. So thanks for listening, and I'll look forward to chatting with you in the next episode.